Previously on the Beam Chronicles.
Electricity sticks, specifically for killing Tyler Foone.
But they'll lose juice super quickly. After that, you'll have to bring them back to me to recharge. It's totally uninsulated, and I don't want it to arc back up your arm.
Jaxon and I both jumped, then stared in awe at the concussive blast of a jet he fired into Cid. I call it OGS, overgrouping syndrome.
She ungrouped 3 tons of steel without so much as a dizzy spell, and 2 years ago that would have killed her.
I thought I could maybe potentially group Jaxon if I had to group somebody. Your body is a hell of a lot different from mine, all right? I was terrified of grouping either of you, but I thought I had a better shot with Jaxon and he had a better shot with Fly.
If there's just a chance my net contribution to humanity was neutral, marginally detrimental to mankind, I'd hang my hat on that all day, mate. And yeah, nobody will ever love me again, or possibly even like me still. I'll take it.
You don't even know the whole story, all right? He's ashamed of it. He's guilty. He wants to atone.
He's lying.
I don't think he is.
Oh, listen, I'm trying. I really am, Jaxon, but it's Tyler Foone.
What the fuck? There's a goddamn soul gotta do to take a fucking bullet with some fucking dignity round here.
As long as you don't get killed, go help your fucking buddy, or whatever the hell he is. Whatever this is, don't die.
I never even began to expect it when he blasted me with a jet, flinging me down the hallway into the back of the elevator. I heard my neck crack, then darkness.
If Foone's blowing up the world how he needs us, only we can stop Foone and only how we can save Jaxon. We'll let Foone go, let him wreak havoc, then barter with profit.
Once he is resurrected, I will send Jaxon to you, and you don't have to kill Tyler until you're sure that I've upheld my end of the bargain. Just hold the line in the meantime. Keep him from the ocean, shock the rain out of him as he absorbs it. Check him, but wait to thwart him until Jaxon returns. Is that fair? Understand, I am incurring all of the risk in this, and that I am blindly trusting you to finish Tyler off when you see Jaxon alive. But please, you must go now.
These are the Beam Chronicles, with your host, MJ Dooney. Book 2, Compromised. Chapter 22, Cidney Kovorski.
This is sufficient racket for ya?
We could barely make out the words as Foone shouted over the concussive blasts of water he was spouting from either hand, simultaneously sucking up the rain and crumbling the buildings on both sides of the street. I had some lingering bit of hope in my gut that these skyscrapers were safely evacuated before he launched his attack, but it was hard to imagine that being the case. We had only taken a few moments to get to him, guided by Charlie Sixing while riding Phil's hovercraft to the location of his demonstration. It was unlikely most capital citizens retreated safely out of harm's way in the short time it took us to get there. I let these thoughts marinate in the back of my head as motivation, but did not dwell on them in order to avoid the distraction.
I know we already talked about this, but last chance to surrender peacefully.
She certainly had a way of erratically deciding when and to whom she would be diplomatic.
Jaxon all right?
Not yet. We're here to make sure you don't go Tanaka while he's recovering.
I'm not surrendering.
I could barely make out his face on the human-shaped blob, but this arrogant tone led me to deduce he was smirking.
Not like this. Strongest I ever been, I'll take my chances even against you lot.
Suit yourself. But I should warn you, we're a hell of a lot better than the last time we met.
That makes 3 of us.
And the battle began. He fired a blast as thick and raging, loud and powerful as the one he hit me with during Foone 2.5 years ago, straight into me. Strategically, it was the proper move. Charlie would have evaded it effortlessly, and history indicated I could not take this strongest blast solo. History failed to take into account my progression. 2 years of growth and training had made me all but immune. I was thicker-skinned, stronger, more resilient to pain, and while it stung, my forearms crossed in front of me to deflect the water away from my face so I could breathe. I could sustain this position for as long as I had air. I did not even require a truck to help me block the blast. And unlike last time, Charlie had a way of stopping him, which he had apparently forgotten about. I only stood in the tube for about 2 seconds before it faded out, and the thundering sound was replaced by his screams. I saw him ahead of me, being swarmed by a flurry of shocks and jolts. Flashing lightning spread all around his body like camera bulbs in a stadium. He was paralyzed and twitching as she repeatedly struck him with her electro mace. Steam was billowing away from every square inch of him, and the deep blue shade started to drift back in, like a drop of dye spreading throughout his body. With Foone trapped in place, I grabbed my mace, charged toward him, and bashed him with an upward swing. While he toppled through the air, then slammed into the pavement, Charlie grouped beside me, snatched my mace out of my hand, and returned a second later with 2 fresh ones, fully charged by Phil, sitting in the sunlight above the clouds. Foone teetered back up to his feet, now faintly teal, and the twitching subsided as he pulled more rain into him from all directions, healing our blows and recovering his dark blue hue, then his translucence.
How's the battery life on your sticks, kids? That had to drain them a bit, eh?
He arrogantly asked once he had fully recuperated.
These ones right here are full battery.
Bullshit.
No, I just replaced them.
She smugly bragged.
Come again?
Got a little green friend who's providing the useful service of generator. See the futility yet? He recharges. I replace. We keep pummeling you. Where's the opportunity in this for you to win?
I was grateful to have her here to do the talking.
Yeah, bollocks. I know your green friend needs sun to make power. It's bloody well overcast, isn't it?
He's pretty high up, Foone.
Hell, I can go high up.
He had barely made it 20 feet off the ground before Charlie grouped up above his head and jabbed the electromace into the top of his skull. His jet sputtered out as he convulsed, then plummeted, and before he hit the ground, I swung my mace through him, striking him in the belly and blasting him into a pile of rubble he had created alongside the road. He exploded his way out with an expanding dome of water, tossing debris into all directions. Charlie lazily grouped through a large chunk heading toward her while I K-packed the largest piece on a collision course with me, then permitted the remaining pieces to harmlessly bounce off my chest like ping pong balls. Panting above the wreckage and reduced to dark translucent blue, Foone quickly pulled the rein into him to re-establish his clear form, then jetted straight toward me like a cannonball. I braced my weapon for his impact, but only a foot before he hit me, he stalled, hovering in place. Then exploded a spherical bubble of water around his body. He stayed suspended in the center of the ball, himself curled up with his arms wrapped around his knees. Then snapped all 4 limbs out quickly. The bubble morphed, reformed itself to match his motion, into a large watery golem type of creature with arms and legs and a head. The faint outline of Foone's nearly invisible body floating at the heart of the giant. It was all so very impressive, so very unexpected. I had never seen Foone do anything beyond singular barrels of water blasted from either arm. This elaborate sort of display, resulting in a thick suit of rushing water armor taller than me, was not something I knew he was capable of, and in my astonished admiration I allowed him, or the water monster he was riding in at least, the opportunity to grab my mace and pulverize it. He then threw his hands, or more appropriately the water golem's hands, at my face, attempting to drown me, cut off my nitrogen supply. I caught him with my own hands, pushing up against the current. His control on the water was unbearably strong. The pressure was almost enough to overcome me, and given enough time, I would have lost that struggle. But mercifully, Charlie bailed me out again, grouping between us and thrusting her mace right into the stomach of the golem, piercing all the way through and prodding Foone with the jolt. Foone lost his hold on the water he was using to make his guardian, but the instant she pulled back her mace, he reabsorbed the water he had lost before it drifted away from him and then threw the golem back into place. They repeated this pattern. Jab, drop, rebuild. Several times.
Stop fucking doing that, you piece of shit! Ha!
Safety disabled.
Okay, asshole, how about this?
Finally, with a lengthy battle cry, she thrust her mace in and held it. Ostensibly, she had disabled the safety for this particular thrust because the shock was continuous, unbroken. I surmised by the length of the attack that she was reloading every few seconds, grouping up to Phil's platform, swapping for a new weapon, then returning to continue without me or Foone noticing. And while Foone let out a gargling howl and steam surged off of his back like a factory smokestack, I noticed the bolts of lightning arcing back up onto her forearm, burning her. "Charlie, get me one." And she turned around to nod at me, tears streaming down her face. It scorched my soul to see her in such pain, and so once she had grouped away, I summoned every bit of strength I had within me, shoving Foone, re-encased in his golden shield, as far away from me as I could. Pushing against the running water stung my hands, but as soon as I had established a gap between me and my opponent, I held my arms above my head. Charlie grouped onto my shoulders and pressed a mace into my raw palms just as Foone stepped up to re-engage our grappling match. I slammed the electromace down into him. It was a powerful enough blow to create a crater in the cement where his solid body struck it, and he dropped all of the water he was using to keep his golem protector up, this time permanently. Our combined efforts had deprived him of all moisture, and he was flesh-toned, bleeding, charred, and panting. I turned to my partner. "Charlie, your arm." And she held it up, pulsing and blistering everywhere, in some areas charred to zigzaggy blackness. She quickly lowered it, too tough to care, then shot me a quick shrug and smile.
Crap. I guess I should just leave the safety on, huh?
Yeah, that's kind of why we call it a fucking safety, Charlie.
Phil spoke into our earpieces. She essentially ignored this, returning her attention to hassling Foone.
So damn, that's pretty cool, buddy. But for all that gusto, check the damage. You destroyed 1 total mace out of 40. You burned my arm a little bit. And nice to know you're trying, though. I am a little excited to see what else you come up with before Jaxon gets here.
To that point, he had yet to get off the mat by taking up more water. Truthfully, he had yet to move, and thus his face was still battered, bruised, and bloody. One eye was swollen shut, but the one which was not opened, widely and suddenly.
Fuck you just say? Jaxon's coming here?
He anxiously asked.
None of your business, but yeah, that's how we'll know the failsafe worked. And at that point, we're clear to actually kill you. That's why we haven't yet, by the way. It should be any minute now, so you wanna give up yet?
He sucked up the rain faster than the prior times, remedying the lacerations on his face, reestablishing his transparency yet again, then converting himself into a mini tornado, reforming in a standing position.
I can't be here when he shows up.
He muttered to himself, nervously scanning the surroundings.
I can't let him see me like...
Like what? Like fucking yourself? I think he basically knows what you're like.
Fuck you!
He sneered, almost as if he had just remembered that we were there.
You don't know shit! About me or nothing, you don't know shit!
Oh my god, you can't be serious. You think, what, that if he doesn't physically see you trying to kill his friends, rampaging the capital, partaking in a static global conquest, you think Jaxon will continue trusting and liking you? You fucking killed him 30 minutes ago!
His full liquid body suddenly began to boil as he snarled and barked.
Shut your goddamn mouth, you fucking bitch!
Holy shit! I thought you were playing him this whole time. But no, that wasn't it at all. You, good lord, you're really that lonely? You actually seriously care what Jaxon thinks of you.
I told you to shut your fucking mouth!
She did not, cavalierly taunted him more.
The problem is you're just that psychotic. You think you can be Jaxon's prison chit-chat buddy and an evil asshole to the entire rest of the world at the same time, and he'll keep them separate. What a joke, you're a fucking idiot!
He sent a blast of water at her face, shouting futilely. She grouped away from it, behind him, bashed him across the skull with her mace as he growled and collapsed to his knees. He spun around as he got up, swiping his hand through her ungrouped body, tossing a sweeping tsunami as he rotated. She regrouped, clubbing him across the back of his thighs with her mace. He fell onto his stomach, and she stabbed it into his back like a sword, then fell back next to me to observe. Again, Foone was blue, twitching and jolting.
Quit, Foone. You can't win.
I ain't trying to win. I just want to go. Let me go, damn it, please.
You know we can't.
Why? I won't do nothing, I swear it. You'll never see me again. I just want to go. Please, please let me go.
We can't let you go, Foone. We need you. We need to keep you here to make sure Jaxon's okay.
What the fuck else can I do?
Tyler.
I was forced to admire his conviction, his refusal to give up when, yet again, he started pulling in the rein. It reminded me so much of Leper, and just like Leper, the tragedy was his fate was inevitable. As it turned out, though, he still had one trick left to try, and it was a big one. Once he had absorbed enough water, Foone remained in place momentarily, breathing, eyes closed, meditating, perhaps prepping his psyche for the next big move. Charlie sighed, walking up to him slowly to beat him with her mace. Perhaps if she were not so cocky in that instant and had grouped up to him instead of walking, the battle would have gone much cleaner. But she had no reason to believe he was capable of what he did next. Before she got close enough to prevent it, it came so suddenly and forcefully and so unexpectedly it flung her backward. Although she grouped to safety beside me shortly thereafter, awestruck at the terrifying display. Just like that, with an ear-splitting boom, Foone was a hurricane. A ball of rushing white water, like a donut, collapsed and compressed inwardly until the hole was just a dimple. The monsoon was 30 feet tall and 30 feet around of pure, unstoppable current. Water spouted out of the top of his head, then down in all directions, encompassing him, and back up into his feet. A circuit of current so large you could not make out Foone's body beyond the recognition that it must be in the center. And when Charlie finally found her wits, grouped up to the hurricane and attempted to strike it with her electro mace, the rushing water yanked it out of her hands, pulverized it against the concrete. I charged forward and attempted the same, but even for my strength, it was too fast, too powerful to make contact without my weapon being torn from my grip and smashed. He had found another gear, it seemed, and all to escape an encounter with Jaxon. Can you group closer to him? I shouted. I could scarcely hear my own voice above the roar of Typhoon's impervious cell. We need to actually hit his body. Electrical contact with him will cause him to lose communication with the water he is expanding. If we can just touch him with the mace...
I can't regroup in that!
She yelled back to me, locks blowing straight behind her.
It's a murder dome. It'll pull me to pieces the second I do.
Perhaps try striking it precisely at the top dimple. It should be a direct shot from there to his body. And she nodded, then disappeared, regrouping a second later above the hurricane, jamming a lit electro mace into the slender eye atop it. She grouped away quickly before she herself drifted into the flow, but meanwhile the shock seemed highly ineffective. A puff of steam burst from the maelstrom, but as soon as the mace made contact, the current dragged it around, slamming it into the ground, shattering it.
That did nothing.
It did something, however, we do not have enough maces to continue that approach to completion.
Hey, can we stop destroying the electro maces, please?
Phil requested into our earpieces, with clarity in spite of the thunderous noise.
We have a limited number, they're kind of hard to make.
Sid, can you touch it?
She asked, ignoring Phil again. I hesitate to try, I replied, staring at the demolished maces pressed into the concrete.
Guys?
Phil attempted once more to get our attention.
I don't want to pile on here painting a picture of the shit we're in, but beyond the fact that we can't touch him, he's also self-sustaining. He's re-upping at the bottom the water he shoots out the top, so he'll never run out. Not to mention the fact it's still raining, so he's getting more ammo that he'll probably use to shoot.
Instant silence. Darkness, numbness. Perhaps I was hit and killed. Perhaps this was what dead felt like. Not altogether unpleasant. But with that grim, albeit optimistic verdict came the faintest sound of Charlie's voice, calling my name.
Sid? Cidney? Hello? Big Purple? You in there?
I jerked back to myself, opened my eyes with a lengthy gasp, "Ugh," and found us tranquilly floating above the clouds in the comfortable, pressurized bubble of Phil's hover platform. Charlie, how did we...
I grouped you, Cid.
Oh. She tried not to look too proud, considering the calamity below us. You grouped me.
Uh-huh.
I repeated it, also trying not to sound too excited considering the calamity below us. But it felt wonderful to have this physical evidence that she cared, had been sixing me all along. I made a mental note of how much I loved her, but I would follow up on that later. The calamity and all. You are our only chance, Charlie.
Me? What the hell am I supposed to do?
On the Detweiler, when Jaxon lost control and he put up a force field to repel anyone who came close, I could not penetrate it with all of my strength, but you did.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. It was weird. I just kept partially regrouping, inching forward without really reestablishing myself until I got to him. I couldn't breathe or see or... I don't even know what made me think to do it. The urgency, I guess?
Could you try the same with Tyler? It is comparably urgent.
I don't know, man. The gap between how much I like Jaxon and how much I like Foone couldn't possibly be bigger. Part of what was driving me toward him on the bridge was how desperate I was to save him.
But Charlie, you just gotta get to him, you know? You shouldn't have to hang around for long. If you just poke him with a little shock, he'll drop all the water not currently stored up within him, which is like most of it at this point. Struggle, poke, he's down, and group out if it gets too rough.
All right, let's try it. Nobody's got any better ideas.
She tucked 2 fresh electromaces under her clean arm, reached out and touched my shoulder with the throbbing, blistered black one. Charlie, are you sure you can group me again? If it is too much trouble, surely I can just jump back down and...
Cidney, I got you. From now on. Always, buddy. Every time. Okay? Say okay.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, my dear. And she grouped us back to the surface of Earth. Her second attempt at grouping me went much better because I did not lapse in my perception at all. I noticed the gaping chasm in the street where I was standing moments before she had saved me, and recognized that based on its depth and width, had she not grouped me out of the way, it would have at least hurt quite badly. I will distract him, I called out over the crashing rumble, catching the mace she tossed to me just in case. If he is focusing on me, perhaps he will not be trying to force you out of his horn Taurus of doom.
The fuck is a horn Taurus, bro?
Well, that is the mathematically accurate description of the shape he is making.
Fucking nerd.
Even when facing impending death, I could rely on Charlie to make fun of me. She grouped away. I imagined her in there struggling to progress inward through the hurricane to the man in the center, inching forward very gradually, skippy and blurry like she was on the bridge. I could not see her, though. The white rapids blocked any visibility, so I could not even predict if she was close. I directed as much of Foone's attention toward me as I could to help her find the path to the middle with as little opposition as possible. Conveniently for my purposes, he apparently could not engulf me in a tube of fury the way he had earlier in the fight, or during our last battle. Sustaining such an attack would probably require a more consistent water source than the rain, regardless of how effective he was at sucking it into himself. Beyond that, it was likely more a matter of focusing on too many things at once. Foone had already demonstrated he was a brilliant juggler, but there had to have been some sort of limit. Obviously, keeping the hurricane going would require the majority of his attention. Instead of the constant water cannon I was so accustomed to, Foone pelted me with a barrage of water bullets, fast enough to penetrate anything I could attempt to utilize as a shield, except perhaps my own skin. My only option was to zip around, dodging the bullets by hopping and rolling, and occasionally meeting them with a shot of K-Pack, dissolving them away before they struck. It was a shame that my stockade of this chemical was so quickly depleted. Had I enough, I could simply dissolve Foone's hurricane away.
Got him!
She triumphantly declared, after only a few seconds, regrouping beside me, and sure enough, the sound died away as the currents of water fell from Tyler's grip, flash flooding the streets of the capital. I instinctively leaped to higher ground for safety, meeting Charlie atop the nearest building. But then Foone began impressively and unexpectedly reabsorbing all of the water he had just released with a mighty roar. Then boom, before we could react, he had re-established the hurricane. I still had to respect his refusal to quit, but it was growing to be quite annoying.
Or not. Damn it. He's a persistent son of a bitch.
Can you reach him again? Keep up the assault so he cannot pull the water back.
Yeah, piece of cake. Keeping up assaults is kind of my thing. Once you see me flurrying him, join in if you want, but be gentle. Remember, we still can't kill him.
Indeed. Good luck, my dear, not that you will need it. And with a grateful smirk, she disappeared again. I was remarkably relaxed. Perhaps it was my position largely as an observer, and the overwhelming removal from the situation that went along with it that contributed to this feeling, or maybe it was that we had such a practical solution to this particular gambit. There was no reason to anticipate complications, but still, even from the rooftop, there were plenty of causes for alarm. There was still a Goliath-destructive, boisterous cyclone raging through the streets of the capital. It was quieter, less foreboding up here, but still, it would have been entirely terrifying were it not for one simple factor, and Charlie was that factor. There was once a time when defeating her was as simple as withstanding her flurry or forcing her to overexert herself, essentially stalling her out of her impressive offensive pressure until she ran out of steam. She responded to this weakness by grinding out more steam. After all of her growth and practice and effort, it would take ungrouping a mountain to overgroup Charlie now, and between her speed, her awareness, and her creativity, there was not a being on Earth who could defeat her. Not me, not Jaxon, certainly not Tyler Foone. How could anyone win a fight against a person they could not touch? Truly, when she was determined, engaged, and focused, she was without equal. I could not bring myself to fear when I knew Charlie stood between me and the storm. She was a famously fast learner, and it took even less time for her to reach him again. I chuckled to myself as I witnessed the flurry, initiating before I had even hopped off the rooftop. But I did so once the wave of released water was past. Foone snarled and twitched and howled like a beast as she buzzed around his head, lighting him up with the electro mace, surely grouping up to fill for replacements periodically, although this aspect of the dance was utterly undetectable to Foone or me. Steam popped off of him in all directions for each of her rapid-fire blows, and he desperately tried to withstand the assault, dragging the rain out of the sky into him, but not quickly enough to replenish the water he was losing. He was crumbling. She was unstoppable. And in 1,000 centuries, I would never have guessed what happened next.
Ah!
Charlie regrouped in front of Foone, then collapsed onto the ground. Suddenly, all the anxiety the situation deserved crashed upon me. No, I whispered, and began sprinting toward them as Foone panted and pulled in more water to recover his wounds. He responded too quickly. Before I was within striking distance, snatching her mace out of her lifeless hands with a rope of water, raising it above his own head.
See how you like it, bitch?
No! No! I could not look away as he slammed it into her, and as she convulsed, I ignored the smoke, the scent of burning flesh, and maintained my charge. Foone noticed me 1 second before I slammed my mace into the side of his head with nearly all the force I could muster, blasting him 100 yards away from us down the street. I'm quite certain I completely dislodged his jaw. Still shaking in unbridled rage, I spun around just in time to see Charlie's eyes burst open intensely wide, and she spasmed her back up, opened her mouth, and gasped. Too overwhelmed by the pain of being singed to a crisp to be capable of producing a scream appropriate to accompany it. How was she conscious? How was she even alive? As the scream crept out of her, airy at first until she found the voice, the only stupid thought I had was how the impact of the raindrops on her severely damaged skin must have felt each like a searing bullet. Surely that was the least of her anguish, the most minute source of pain, but it was the only aspect over which I had control. I stepped toward her and stood over top of her to block the rain. Her screams did not subside in the slightest. Charlie, I did not know what else to say beyond her name, but when she heard it, she looked at me. Her beautiful blue eyes met mine. Her face was mostly spared of damage, scarcely charred and blistered, but the rest of her body was scorched blackness, crimson open wounds or white blisters, with little middle ground between. And she pulled back her screams, muffled them by sucking her lips into her mouth, wrangling them into submission until she was only breathing through her nose audibly. Every inch of her body quaked as she glared at me, as if she had something she desperately wanted to tell me. Do not speak. I will protect you. She hissed, and I forcefully brushed the tears off my cheeks, afraid they would strike her wounds and send waves of pain rippling through her. Do not speak, please.
Cidney, no.
She finally groaned, wincing and writhing, gasping for air.
Leave me.
Never.
Get Foone, you idiot.
No.
Get Foone.
I will not.
Cidney, you need to fucking get Foone.
She slammed her eyes shut, groaned through pressed lips, and shook for a moment, then opened them to force herself to continue.
We don't have time for this, you dumbass. He's getting stronger. He's pulling in the rain. He'll be right back to Hurricane in a few seconds. No, I'll be fucking pointless.
I do not care.
God damn it, Cidney!
I am not leaving you. I refuse to negotiate. I will never leave you. And you will do the same for me, so do not argue. And as tears welled up on her eyelids, she shook her head in disgust, then admitted.
Fuck. I would. I totally would. We're just a house of cards, aren't we? Get one of us, you got all three.
How tender.
Tyler sneered, back to clear, unblemished, pacing up behind me, flexing the jaw he had just reattached opened and shut. I turned to face him, to look him in the eyes, but I held firm. I would die to protect Charlie, even for 1 single second.
Well, all right. Have it your way, then.
And just as he reared back to blast me away, I stepped forward and raised my arms to block his attack, to protect Charlie for as long as I could hold the line against him. The onslaught was brutal and fierce. It stung my forearms worse than any pain I had experienced, but I did not flinch. I did not waver. Charlie was behind me, powerless on the asphalt. If I did not stand firm, Foone would wash her down the street. I accepted my punishment. I withstood his attack because the pain he caused me was nothing compared to the pain he was capable of causing me. But just when I felt my arms begin to shake, my impenetrable skin began to wear out, just as I thought maybe I could give no more. The rain ceased abruptly. Foone relented his attack. He had already taken up sufficient water to destroy me in my worn-down state, and I had already accepted my death, but both of us were so flummoxed by the erratic weather, we shot our heads up to see what was happening. A dome of invisible force shielding us from the rain. I grinned widely. But Tyler had not pieced together the source of this hemispherical umbrella, still bewildered and confused. Foone did not even see the electromace sailing in from overhead, bashing him in the chest and toppling him away in audible distress. Jaxon Teak landed beside me, tossed another mace into my hands.
Hey, Cid. Miss me?
You have no idea, my friend.
JT.
She spoke softly from behind us, much less belabored, pained, and strenuous than when she attempted to talk to me.
We totally had this.
He glanced over his shoulder and his eyes darted down to her horrifyingly seared core before quickly jumping back to her face. His smile matched the tone of his voice, gentle, soft.
I believe you. I'll be with you in a minute, love, I promise.
He slowly turned around, glaring furiously at Foone, dark blue, on his knees.
I just need a moment to talk to my buddy.
He spat the last word with such vicious contempt the concrete beneath his feet buckled and cratered. Foone threw his hands up onto the back of his head and looked beseechingly at Jaxon.
We're good, mate. We're all done. No fuss, no struggle. All right?
Release your water, Tyler.
I am. I'm gonna. I just want a chance to explain.
Do you think you deserve one?
I could not tell due to the blue of his complexion, but I could have sworn Foone was fighting back tears. The look of shame and disgust on his face was obvious, though.
It weren't supposed to go like this.
No?
I was just gonna run. Take my leave boat to the ocean, spend my life hiding down there with the fishes, get king of Atlantis or some shit. I was out of the world, mate. You wasn't supposed to be involved. None of you was. They wouldn't let me go. I was just gonna run. And then circumstances, mate.
I'm not your mate.
Jaxon.
Shut up. Look what you did to me.
That... I played a role in getting you back. I helped them for your sake. You can ask them. And it was all temporary. You're right now, aren't you?
You think that's what I meant? You think I'm mad because you killed me?
And Tyler shifted his weight to the side, peering between Jaxon and I at Charlie.
Look at what you did to me.
Foone squeezed his eyes shut, hanging his head and pressing it between his forearms, touching the elbows together.
Fuck.
You've tried to kill me 4 times now, Tyler, and the 4th time you succeeded. Now, you'd think that would be the sort of thing that ruins a friendship, but it's not. I can forgive you for that. Hell, I already have. I can't forgive you ever for what you just did to her.
Now.
He did not lift his head.
Again.
And the only reason you're still alive right now is because I know you'd rather be dead. So instead of letting you off the hook, I want you to spend another 50 years thinking about what you did to her, what you did to me, and what you did to Sabrina.
I did not know who Sabrina was, but upon hearing her name, Foone quit trying to hold back his tears and began to sob. He dropped his arms to the road and lifted his head.
I'm sorry. The darkness took over and it was too much power, Jaxon. I don't want to be this way. I forgot what it was like. I don't want it. I hate it. I just forgot. I'm sorry, mate. Truly, I'm sorry.
I know. Release your water.
And with a single deep breath, Foone nodded, then began to do so. It seeped out of him gradually, flowing in a spiral down his arms and into the street. In a way, the display was beautiful. In its sad tranquility, in an odder way, I was slightly disappointed that he nearly had us pinned and now surrendered so willingly. Some part of me hated the idea that a spirit so unrelenting as his could ever be so patently broken. We were this close to our demise, our final release from the clutches of Beam. But now we would press on.
Moving the truck, Murph.
Roger that, Teak.
Sid, make sure he doesn't try anything. I have to go talk to my motherfucking hero.
He patted me on the chest as I stepped toward Foone, as he continued disarming himself of water. We were distracted from each other, however, both watching Jaxon kneel beside Charlie, lift her telekinetically off the ground. He cradled her in his arms, and she touched the side of his face, spoke faintly.
Hey, dipshit, remember when I said, and I quote, "As long as you don't get killed, go help your buddy." And then like 10 seconds later, don't die.
Yeah.
He tipped his head sideways to kiss her palm.
Whoops.
Yeah, whoops. Thanks for listening, asshole.
Charlie, I'm not. Is this hurting you? Are you in pain? Does anything hurt?
Actually, no. It's nice. Before it was agonizing once you showed up. Nothing. Instant relief. I guess you trump 4th degree flesh tearing burns. No pain at all.
He choked, trying to simultaneously laugh and sob.
Hey, listen, love, I know you've been experimenting with new looks, but if you want my opinion, I like the one for my birthday a little bit better than this.
Oh, not a fan of extra crispy? Whatever, you'd still hit it.
I mean, honestly, give it a few months to heal.
Yeah, exactly. Don't even pretend you still don't think I'm bad as fuck.
Toasty Charlie is still Charlie. I'm in this thing for so much more than your looks.
I think I'm gonna die, JT.
He hesitated momentarily as his lip quivered.
I would be very surprised if you didn't die. Yeah, don't worry, love. I got the failsafe all warmed up for you. I'll do whatever it takes to get Prophet to use it on you. Maybe I'll release Foone again.
Oh yeah, so it turns out you can basically just ask him and he'll try it.
See, there you go. You'll be back to me before you know it.
Does it hurt? Dying or fail-safing or any of it?
Nope, not at all.
Tell me what it's like. Or whatever, don't. Just tell me something else. Just keep talking. I'm scared.
Hearing Charlie, the most fearless person I knew, admit to it so blatantly was unsettling for all of us. Even Foone had to look away.
It's hard to explain, actually. I guess it's kind of nice in some ways, like a really peaceful sleep. You accept it. A few seconds before you blink off, you're just... all is right. I think your brain whips up a little relaxing cocktail of chemicals right at the end. Dopamine, whatever. Puts you at ease with everything. I don't know if yours will, considering it's not in your head.
I bet it does. I have faith in Dr. K to uphold all the intricacies of human biochemistry.
Sure. Anyway, don't worry. It's just a pit stop, right? We'll be eagerly waiting for you when you wake up.
I'll never accept it, dying. I'll never accept going somewhere where I'm not perfectly certain you can follow me.
Charlie, come on. Do you honestly think I wouldn't find you?
Jaxon, am I completely too disgusting right now for you to kiss me?
You aren't disgusting. I'd kiss you regardless, but won't it hurt?
Try it.
And he did. Gingerly and softly.
Didn't hurt. Keep doing it, JT. Kiss me until I'm gone.
I knew surely this death was temporary. But it was still my Charlie. I wept all the same.
Thank you for listening to the Beam Chronicles, a fiction podcast written and produced by me, MJ Dooney. Okay, this episode did end up taking me 2 weeks, but that's because there was a lot of action, which requires all the sound effects and stuff, but also, emotionally, this one kicked my ass. I'm genuinely crying in 5 or 6 of the lines of this episode, but I think, I want to do that, I want it to be good, I want it to feel powerful for you guys listening like it feels for me. So hopefully that shines through. Email me, beamchronicles@gmail.com, if this episode made you cry. I got a headache 6 nights in a row from recording and editing because I was crying that much. Anyway, 5 stars on Spotify or Apple. Social media is empty. I do have a few people who might be drawing some stuff for me. I'm super excited about that. So hopefully soon, Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and Twitter will have something. 5,000 download count, I'm at 4,747. I slowed down a little because I did 1 new episode in the last 3 weeks. I still think we should get there by the end of book 2. But tell your friends. Word of mouth is pretty much all I got. All music and sound effects were sourced from the Epidemic Sound Library. Special thanks to Sergio Duarte for creating the cover art for the show. And thank you one more time for listening.